Have somehow made it through episode 1. Before we go any deeper into that, I need to throw our rule of acquisition.
Oh, please.
Folks, I want to go ahead and impart some true words of wisdom from an unfortunate race that won't have much more involvement in the rest of the series, and that is the Ferengi. With the 208th rule of acquisition. Joe, are you familiar with this one?
I'm afraid I'm not. Please enlighten me.
Sometimes the only thing more dangerous than a question is an answer. And I feel it's appropriate because the question here is, where are the Maquis? Where are we? What is going to happen? The very dangerous answer is stupidity, boredom, and disappointment.
So that's a great way to start episode 2 of V'ger Please, a hateful voyage through the Delta Quadrant as we continue to discuss the pilot episode of Star Trek Voyager. Season 1, Episode 1, Caretaker, because the first 25 minutes is very interesting, is very good. A lot of getting to know some people. And the last 2/3 to 3/4 of this pilot fails to pay off on that in any appropriate way.
But it was funny. There's some good hitting here. Before we go any further, we're your hosts. I'm Peter.
Oh, I'm Joseph. And where we last left our heroes is they've just locked down Voyager after getting zotted across the galaxy in front of this big array. Janeway went downstairs to the engine room and basically crossed a few wires and made it so the ship wouldn't fucking blow up. She's a certified warp mechanic, I guess, or whatever. They got their doctor trying to take care of all their casualties, and suddenly everyone's getting warp beamed out of the ship. Suddenly they are in front of a plantation house. They've got the weeping willows in the background, and it's just some down old home country people in front of them.
Yeah, they've ended up at a space Cracker Barrel, essentially. Dude, as soon as we saw this, and I saw the farmhouse and her start yelling about lemonade, instantly my eyes just roll back in my head, and it's just like, how many times have we hammered this goddamn trope of, like, we're in the middle of space, yet we're at a farmhouse? Like, I felt like I just hit a wall of disinterest.
They all figured out quick too. Like, this is clearly some sort of weirdo hologram, and you've got all these people kind of standing around, like, suspiciously looking at all of this nonsense as all these people show up for a fucking hoedown and are eating corn and like, what the fuck is going on? Janeway tasks Harry and Tom to, like, go fucking find the fuck is going on. Like, yeah. Clearly there's some shit that we don't know about that we need to get to the bottom of. So they're rolling out, and one of the holograms, like, follows after, like, the saucy farmer's daughter hologram, which Tom Paris immediately wants to bone. I'm glad we have a moment of him, like, obviously entertaining the idea of a roll in the hay with this hologram.
I mean, he's basically, like, flicking his tongues over her lips, and, like, Harry's like, come on, Tom.
It's like Tom's the cool kid in school, and Harry's, like, his nerdy younger friend. You know, Tom doesn't give a shit. He wants to just bang the hologram, but Harry presses on, and they find the spot where all the holograms are being generated in this weirdo perfect version of a southern plantation house, and suddenly it all gives way to this corridor that looks like something from the Twilight Zone.
Whoa! You're jumping ahead here. Such a painful and slow scene here. You know everything that you need to going in, that, hey, there's no space farmhouse, this is very clearly some sort of an illusion, blah, blah, blah. And they wallow around in the scene and really rub your face. And it's like, come on, can we just get this goddamn thing moving?
It's like, did you spend that much money on a location shoot that we got to spend an extra 5 minutes dealing with this? Like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So you've got an advanced technology, and, they're warping people around. These holograms are very clearly like animal handlers, like, hey, just keep these guys tied up while we do whatever nefarious thing we're going to do. And then all the important shit's in the barn. We don't want people to go in there. Like, first try to screw this guy and then be like, no, don't go in there. She's got, like, her arms across, like, the doorway. And it's like, if the secret switch is hidden in the barn and you don't want people to go in the barn, why don't you close the goddamn barn doors, alien entity? Because everybody floods in there anyways, and they're like, pitchforks teleport in, and we're not eating corn after all. Forget about the cookies. Now you get the mean alien treatment, and they end up closing the doors anyways.
If you don't want someone to enter this part, you should probably not make it such a big deal that you really care about this part of your simulation. You should not continue to tell them not to go there when they are clearly, trying to go in there.
We talk about Star Trek Next Gen crawling itself out of the grave and all the growing pains of a new experience and all, I can't afford these same luxuries to Voyager. They know better. This is just stupid, bad writing, and it's like just head scratching, like, what the fuck, man?
They unveil that this is all a simulation, and then we see this long stretch of weird alien biobeds with all of the Maquis that we've been looking for, with just kind of like a blanket strategically placed over their chests with some sort of plunger inside them.
Yes, and I'll also go ahead and note that this alien entity must be accustomed to dealing with people much smaller than humans, because it's like they're laying on like ironing boards. Like everybody's arms are just dangling off to the side.
So all of the Voyager crew members, they get kind of beamed into basically out of their clothes into the blanket, and we see some horrifying shots of them being essentially probed or experimented on or injected or whatever. And
I think those are injections in the sternum.
And we cut to commercial after that. And the very next shot we have is everyone coming to wherever they were standing previously back on the back on Voyager rather, which has gratefully not exploded. Like whatever Janeway did apparently locked everything down enough so that there's a bunch of debris and all that, but place is still intact because they've been gone for 3 days.
Doctor's still on. Yeah, and there was that throwaway line in there that she used to be a science officer. The more I think about it, the more I like this Janeway so far. I appreciate the way that she came up and her locking things down. At least there's some sort of foundation of like why the captain would know how to stop a warp core cascade failure or whatever.
They find the Maquis Trans Am out there. They put it in a tractor beam. They're concerned because they're missing someone. They're missing Harry Kim. And they wonder maybe Harry Kim got beamed over to the Trans Am, so they bring up the Trans Am on the view screen, and we get another shot of now Chakotay. They explain it. They're missing someone too. They're missing B'Elanna Torres. They say, okay, well, we've got a problem then because you're missing someone, we're missing someone. We got to figure out what the fuck happened.
So what's the most reasonable thing to do with the terrorists that you were dispatched by Federation High Command to capture?
Clearly, invite him over.
So if you were to sit there and you were to give me a sales pitch on Voyager and say, we have a Federation crew that pursues Federation terrorists, and they end up in the far reaches of the galaxy, and now they're thrust into a situation where they have to work together. I would say, wow, that sounds really edgy and cool. That's something that I would like to hear more about, and I think you could tell a really good story there. That sounds like a really great pilot episode, maybe even a whole story arc to span a first season, is getting these two groups of dichotomically opposed humans to unify into one crew. And instead of really selling that and exploring that tense drama, they just hand-wave the whole fucking thing. Like, hey, there's the Taliban over there. Oh, you lost Mahmoud? Well, we lost Joe. Instantly, I pause the thing and I turn to my wife and I'm like, why would they not just like take these dudes out and throw everybody's ass in the burr? Like, secure your primary objective and then start worrying about some other stuff. And I know there's like certain hard answers you can't ask about Star Trek or questions you can't ask these episodes, but just so mind-boggling.
Well, I think at first they make you think there is going to be some tension because they beam over. Immediately, Janeway's like, all right, hey, nice to see you again, Tuvok. By the way, Tuvok was totally a spy. Chakotay turns around. He's obviously like shocked by this revelation, and he immediately makes it racial. Like starts calling him Vulcan in this sort of derogatory way.
Well, even before that, the fact that the Maquis beam onto the bridge, just both sides, like, hey, Maquis, your ship's a piece of junk. You guys are scrappy terrorists who got to do whatever to get a leg up. Like, oh, look, there's some Federation dummies that want to play nice. Why don't we go over there and fucking take their shit? Now we'll have a badass top of the line Federation cutter ship. Like, they beam over. So, anyways, they beam in to the bridge, the nerve center of this hot shit Federation ship. Phasers out, ready to go. And that dipshit security guard behind Janeway was like, look out, Captain, they're armed. Like, yeah, thanks. I can see everybody's got a fucking gun in their hand. No promotion for you, motherfucker. That's why I need my first, that's why I need my Vulcan back, is because all the other security on the ship is complete garbage.
Well, they come out, they come over with Glocks out, but they immediately diffuse all the tension even after Chakotay like throws some shade at Paris for, being like a mercenary, and they obviously don't like each other. And Janeway settles it all. It's like, listen, everyone can it. We're trying to find our people, so let's fucking get our act together and go and find them, because we think they got beamed to where this space station.
Joe, I can't get past this. The more I think about it, the more it's driving me nuts. This is so stupid for both parties. The Federation had an easy capture for the fugitives that they've been sent out to collect. The Maquis terrorists had the perfect opportunity to waste everybody on that bridge and score a baller-ass new ship. Like, this moment just defies all logic and common sense. But moving past this terrible thing, I want to go and say this is really where you get that guy that you're talking about, the extra in the background, the one I keep saying is wearing the umpire stuff. This dude is throwing some grade A shade. Even my wife's like, look at this guy. There's this smoldering gaze. Like,
when you don't get lines, you have to act with your face.
This guy has got the best story out of anybody in the show so far. I mean, with the exception of maybe Quark. Like, I'm watching this. I'm like, how many family members of this guy did Tom Paris drag into a fucking basement and molest? What did he steal from this guy? What did Tom Paris like date rape this dude? Like, what could elicit such hateful looks?
He acted better with his face than Chakotay did with his words. Clearly.
Yeah. And I want to go ahead and jump off on a second here. Why is Paris even in a uniform? Like, they've got the Maquis got like some serious resentment to this guy, and Janeway's like, "You'll respect him as a member of my crew, and as you would respect me." And it's like, he's a fucking prisoner. You got this guy dressed back up like he's everything honky dory. Like, he's got everything on him except for the pips.
Yeah, he doesn't have rank insignia, but otherwise he looks like he's in Starfleet still. Like, but there's an interesting note at the end of the episode I think about that that's even worse. But in the meantime,
it's like, there's your jumpsuit and there's your stupid purple turtleneck. I hate these uniforms. Can we talk about these now? We've waited long enough. The worst uniforms I think we've ever had to suffer through, and they used it so much. It's like I'm having a hard time putting words to this. These jumpsuits have a very interesting history. They've played around with them so much. I mean, that's very clearly they're an evolution of the cadet uniforms.
Yeah.
But even then, like, I got this picture of Nicholas Lucano up from whatever episode that was, where you saw the prototype for Tom Paris. Those even looked better. That was a solid top red. They didn't have any sort of V-neck slit. Then these are like the cadet uniforms from... You remember that TNG episode where Picard gets beamed off and it's like 4 people and there's the cadet in there with them, and it's like a big observation thing?
Yeah.
Anyways, that cadet, she's... was it Tholians? They had the thing down their head, like a butt crack going their whole head. Like Mott the Barber.
Bolian,
yeah. That was the real cadet prototype to this jumpsuit. Just that purple turtleneck. Like, this is so soft, weak 90s sauce that I think it really encapsulates a lot of things well. And unfortunately, since they're cut off from Starfleet, that by the time the first contact black jumpers with gray shoulder pads roll out, they don't ever get to see those upgrades. So just every time I see the elastic belts on them, it just drives me nuts, man. But anyway, so Paris is in this uniform,
and they're finally going over to talk some real talk with this stuff they found over at the array. And they break out their like Tommy gun looking phaser rifles, and they roll over all hard as fuck. And they find like one dude strumming a banjo in the middle. They interrogate him like, all right, motherfucker, before we start gatting you, you tell us where our fucking people are. And he makes like he's this big higher life form. He's got this issue. He's gotta procreate so that
He does not say procreate. That's the big reveal at the end. You're confusing the two scenes. He totally brushes them off to the point where he like cue like wave of the hand like teleports him out of there. This guy wants no part of these guys. He's got bigger things to do, and they are just wasting his time. I don't even know why they were able to beam onto the starship or onto the space station with the amount of disdain and disinterest this guy has.
this guy's obviously got a lot of juice because he literally waves his hand, and everybody that was sent over is right back on Voyager's bridge. So they know they've got a big problem. And then after that, they cut to this, sterile white room looking place with some Mennonite looking aliens looking down at Harry Kim, who's obviously concerned because he's in a weird place. And then he looks down at his hand, and to his horror, he's got all of a sudden got like alien herpes.
Syphilis. That's syphilis.
He's got some fucking alien bug all up in him, and next to him awakens B'Elanna Torres, who starts Star Trek fighting everyone that she possibly can.
Oh yeah, she lays him out.
Classic double hand fist hammer blows.
That's a double axe handle.
Just
Picard favorite.
Starts trying to take it to everybody. That's actually a Kirk classic. I'll have you know. But
Sure.
She ends up getting sedated, and then we don't get really any dialogue. We just know they've got weird Hep C, alien Hep C on them, and they're someplace else.
That doctor looked familiar to me too, and this is, I think, going to be an ongoing theme for this show. Is Spot the TNG guy. I had to pause the episode when I was watching with my wife, and I'm like, I thought he was from the episode of TNG where they gotta get the ultra advanced clone people to start having sex with the space hillbillies to repopulate. Remember, there's chickens all over the cargo bay. Yeah, well, I was wrong. It's not. He was from that's Bruce French. He was from Drumhead. That was the episode where Norris Satie comes and starts accusing someone of sabotaging the Enterprise. He was one of her assistants.
Oh yeah, he was the Betazoid or something.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I remember him now.
So again, throwaway dude one week, throwaway dude next week. He's no Roga Dinar, but that's two solid TNG plugs in there so far that I'm aware of. Lisa Ocampa, that's the name of this race. Well, I don't know. I might be getting ahead of myself. What's next here?
So the next scene's a quiet scene in Janeway's ready room. Back on Voyager, they do a captain's log. They're like, we're gonna go check this planet out that this energy is getting beamed to, because if our dudes are anywhere, they're probably there. And Janeway has a scene with Tuvok where she's reflecting somewhat emotionally on trying to get to know her crew better, talking about who Harry Kim is, that he's got Asian helicopter parents, so wanted to send his clarinet. But she seems clearly affected by the loss of the crew members that she's already had and wanting to get them all home safe. Like, we get a little of emotion, and it was a good way to demonstrate how she's different than Kirk and Picard and Sisko before her, in that Kirk was a bon vivant and Picard was super intellectual and Sisko is a loose cannon, and she kind of gives a shit about people on a personal level.
So let's do a now versus then. Where do you think audiences at home would have been on seeing the softer side of a captain who is vulnerable and self-doubting?
It's 1995. This is prime time to be in touch with your emotions on television.
Really? I don't think this was received really well, was it? Like, showing that? I seem to remember like a lot. I don't think the hardcore Trekkers would have really dug seeing, this kind of a captain. But me watching it now as a 35-year-old in 2000, I guess it would have been 2018 when we watched this, I thought it was a solid development scene and very relatable, and I liked it.
I mean, I don't know how Trek fandom did or did not like this episode when it was initially put out. Or
well, you as a Trekker then versus you as a Trekker now, where would you have put this scene before as a eighth grader.
I mean, I certainly appreciate it more now, and for the same reason you do. You know, when you're an
Sure.
adult and you've had real responsibility in your life, you can better appreciate someone bringing to their performance the weight of the things that have happened around them a bit more. And you get spoiled watching, you know, even in Star Trek, watching like Patrick Stewart kind of pull this off easily all the time.
Hmm.
So it's a tough thing to do, and it's well done in this scene in particular. It's quiet.
What do you think about Tuvok's involvement?
I think people bag at we haven't talked about Tuvok much as a character because Tuvok is a Vulcan. He's the first full-blooded Vulcan main show character we've ever had on Star Trek to this point. And he's very Vulcan. I mean, he's very straightforward and doesn't express emotion and plays that stereotype extremely well, which means it doesn't give you a lot to talk about.
I've gotten my notes here because she actually goes on to talk about his family a little bit, and he does the typical, they don't, what was it? They don't miss me, or
they're not worried about me, but
yeah, but they
does
miss
cop
me,
to them missing him. Yeah, he cops to the emotional connection.
Sure. Who is he that he's become this emotional confidant kind of for the captain? He's willing to go off and do these deep cover missions into terrorist organizations. And then I stopped and I really started thinking about it, like how crazy it feels while he's talking about his family and this and that. Like, dude's a Vulcan and he's in security. What kind of Vulcan goes into security? And I don't know if it's something they really kind of flesh out through the series, but I mean, it would seem almost like an insult to me. Like, here you are, you're this high elf intellectual, and you're going to go do thug security work. Like, is his family ashamed of him?
I know in future episodes, they really show that Tuvok is a tactical mind. And so he's very into puzzles. He's very into figuring things out. So it makes sense in a way that he took the tactical track in his Starfleet career. And that he's very much into finding the solution to a problem, just in a more practical way than a scientific way, which I think is cool. It gives you a different view on Vulcans, because all the Vulcans we've seen, well, the one that we've really spent a lot of time with has been very science oriented. So this is something different, but we don't really get to know much about him yet, really at all in the pilot, except for one thing, which is the next scene when we meet perhaps the truly the best character. I know we talked about the Doctor, but let's heart of hearts, the best character on Voyager, and that is Neelix, or perhaps if you prefer, Space Snarf. We see Voyager encounter a space garbage trowel, literally. This guy's he's got this messy efficiency apartment in space, where he's like, I found this garbage. This garbage is mine. He's like an angry hobo. And he looks like one, too. He's dressed in all these furs and shit, like he just got out of Rua Penthe or something.
Like he just got out of the first Ferengi episode.
Yeah. And he talks like, oh, wait, are you guys some other part of the galaxy and just kind of got roped in here somewhere? And all of a sudden everyone's all ears to Space Snarf.
Some very 90s space camcorder work there with him moving the scene around and being off frame.
Yeah, he's got just one little CVT that's his view screen. He's got to hold it to be able to see. But they barter with him that he apparently wants water. And Janeway just kind of smiles to herself like, yeah, I'll get you some water, bro. Can you come help me find my dudes, because you seem to know what the hell is going on and we don't know where we are. But Neelix drops this hint that other ships have been brought in from other parts of the galaxy, so this has happened a lot. I don't think we ever pay that off. I don't think we have, aside from one episode deep in the Voyager, we never see anyone else that gets zapped in here from the Alpha Quadrant, aside from these dudes.
There's a lot of stuff that I suspect goes on in this episode that they never really circle back to. It was a crime that Next Gen did. Just these plot hooks that they would throw out that would just go absolutely nowhere, sadly. Yeah, so Neelix comes in, snarfing all over the transporter room, and eventually he gets sunk into his quarters. This was my biggest what the fuck moment, was the follow-up scene here, which is where Tuvok goes back to grab him because they've arrived on
the fifth planet, yeah, the Ocampa planet.
Yeah, the Ocampa planet. And Tuvok just rolls right into this dude's crib. No doorbell, no nothing. Just walks right in here. Not only goes in this guy's quarters, but like walks right into the fucking bathroom where it's very clear this dude's in the bath.
I guess the Delta Quadrant's like fucking space Amish country because no one fucking knows what a goddamn transporter or replicator is, and Snarf has gone around and like ordered as much replicator room service as he possibly could.
Which right there, I'm gonna say that is where Neelix cements himself as my spiritual animal because I've had so many daydreams in my head, like, God, if I had a replicator in the wall, like, what wouldn't I be? And like, give me some like fat julienne fries from Cedar Point slathered in vinegar and like just every crazy thing. Fuck it, take a bite off of this, bite off of that, just stack food to the ceiling because you've got a magic hole in the wall that you can get anything out that you want. You gluttonous pig, go 100%. And that's what Neelix does. And that's why I appreciate him. That's why I respect him.
He does. He's very. Tuvok comes in, to Tim Russ's credit, the guy who plays him. He plays a very like dry sarcasm in the scene.
Can I have one of your shitty uniforms? No, you can't have this shitty uniform. We only let people wear uniforms who are fucking criminals and prisoners and felons on this ship. Nothing for you, Neelix.
They get him dressed up, and meanwhile we get another shot back on the Ocampan planet. Where we finally get some dialogue between Harry Kim and B'Elanna. B'Elanna's apparently a sole character trait in this episode is I am angry, because she is angry at all times towards all things. Harry Kim tries to talk her down, and
so this isn't the first time we've seen a half human, half Klingon.
Yeah, Kalar from TNG was our first look, and she's got a similar forehead situation as her,
but character-wise, I mean, I would say B'Elanna Torres is the complete opposite end of the spectrum. Like, Worf, and it's funny, we bring this up because their child, Alexander Rozhenko, Worf's son, the actor actually just passed away, yesterday? The day before yesterday?
Oh, I didn't know that. That sucks.
Yeah, man, he was like 35, I think. I was like, wow, that dude's my age. I think he was 35, but yeah. Anyway, so his mom was like, the first half human, half Klingon, and she was an ambassador and a very smooth operator, and her anger only got the better of her under like extreme circumstances, whereas like B'Elanna's like, her only has like a calm thought on a blue moon. Like she's just the complete polar opposite. Voyager checked a lot of the equal opportunity boxes for the 90s. You got the female captain, you got a minority first officer, her confidant. It's the first, I think that's the first black Vulcan we really saw. If you're saying that B'Elanna was a Latina actress, Asian, I mean, that's, I think aside from the hologram doctor and Paris, I mean, they're the only two white dudes, right?
That is correct. And really, Tom Paris is the only actual dude.
Yeah, and I mean they kind of portray him as a womanizing criminal. So
yeah. Like this show was woke 22 years ago, which is why I always rolled my eyes at Discovery's like trying to make hay about look at us, we're focusing on these strong female characters. I'm like this is 2 decades old. This is old. This was old hat in the 90s.
That might have been a big part of too why Voyager didn't receive the warmest receptions. I mean that was a lot of bold diversity choices, and I think they really front loaded it hard, and that might have caused some turbulence there. But again, looking at it from 2018 and where TV's at now, like a lot of this stuff just doesn't pop off the screen as maybe it would have in the mid 90s.
Yeah, I mean, I was too young to really understand if there was backlash from it then, but it certainly, as a younger viewer, didn't give me any pause.
Maybe not backlash, but I think there could have definitely been some resentment in the back seat there that weighed things down.
The Ocampa doctor comes in, just like you were about to say, and says, "Hey, you got brought here by the caretaker. This is our sweet underground jam. Look at all this. Look at this city. Look at all this great stuff we've got going on down here. And we got bad news for you, though. That's not space herpes. That's space AIDS. That's space AIDS. It's gonna fucking kill you. It's not HIV. It's full blown AIDS." And so we cut back to Neelix, and
well, hold on before we get off of that. There, like, it's clearly not. I don't know. The Ocampa don't seem to give a shit about it. They're like, yeah, we'll touch you, and we'll fucking fist fight and brawl you, and dress you and undress you while you're unconscious. So they don't care about it. My big takeaway from all this stuff is that the Ocampa love fishnet. Fashion has been a real big focus on this for me, and the Ocampa, like 50% of any of their costumes is some sort of pastel fishnet material. These dudes are like some postmodern goth action for real. Space elves.
They are apparently telepathic. We saw some things with them being able to speak with their minds. I don't think in this episode at all we hear about their lifespan.
No, they do. They talk about it explicitly when they end up on. We'll get to. Or I don't know how much we want to fucking get into the detail here, but when they're up on the surface and like, what are those guys called? Kazon. They're like, yeah, these guys suck. They only live 9 years. They're bad slaves and they're bad. They're bad and they're worthless.
That's right. So that's when he gets mentioned, and then that's the next scene. They're Chakotay, Janeway, Tuvok, and Neelix, and now this weird checkered suit thing that they replicated for him, I guess, have beamed down to this planet to trade water.
Does Paris go down with them too?
Yeah, Paris is there too. You're right.
I want to jump onto this for a second here, and it's an overarching observation. It's like, how much does Janeway hate her crew? Like, yeah, she's got some deaths or whatever, but it's like, okay, so her helm officer, who she eventually ends up replacing him with, is dead. Like, anything that this prisoner wants to do, she's like, here's the keys to the castle. You can go anywhere, do anything. Like, feel free to knock around on the bridge, Starfleet observer. Here's your uniform. But, more to the point, eventually she takes all these Maquis people and fills all these key positions. Like, does rank and seniority mean nothing on this vessel? Does she hate the lower decks of her crew so much that she's like, you know what, terrorists and prisoners, bridge crew to me, guys. Like, lieutenant junior grade so-and-so, like, why am I getting completely fucking passed over? Like, make these dudes be ensigns and busters, or, put them in the fucking brig. Nah. You keep staying down there being a little nobody. We're promoting from outside the organization.
My headcanon is Janeway likes a bad boy, and
yeah.
She's got some feelings going on, and it's just letting Tom do what he wants. But they beam down to the planet, and they encounter the worst, like, persistent antagonist in Star Trek history, the Kazon, who are basically Klingons if they were terrible. Poor dirt farmers and bad at everything and just buttholes. That would be the Kazon. They've got these like weird dread hair going on. They've got these crappy latex ridges all over their face, and they're just dirty, and they just want to like scavenge and take shit, and they suck.
Let me tell you what I think the Kazon are. I think the Kazon are what would happen if you were to crossbreed the Klingons with the Pack-Led.
That's close.
Like, that's how much these guys suck.
They suck pretty bad.
And so, yeah, they go flashing, their high-end transporter technology and replicators. And jumping back to Neelix for a second, that scene where he's just stacking food to the ceiling. Like, I know the replicators go offline at some point because it's a pretty big deal that they lose the ability to just magic anything in. And I'll talk later on about, the difficulties that I think the replicators present to writers, but I thought it was interesting that they were so much in the forefront for this episode with the magic wonders of replication.
They do, to their credit, do a lot of story with the impact of the Federation's crazy technology level. And to that point, they beam in a bunch of water to bribe these Kazon with to say, hey, can you help us figure out how to get to where these Ocampan are, because we got to find our dudes. And that's where the Kazon's like, what the fuck do you care about, Ocampan? They suck. They don't live very long. And like, see, I got one over there, and she won't fucking tell me anything, even though I've beat the shit out of her. And we see Kess for the first time.
I took away her fishnet, and she still won't talk.
She's this waifish-looking woman in the worst page boy haircut you've ever seen.
Dude, her wig looks like a fucking Q-tip. Like, I've got that as a note in my book here, in my non-Star Trek branded notebook. Like, Q-tip wig, what the fuck?
And Neelix, mind you, everyone basically got disarmed like a bunch of chumps the moment they showed up. But Neelix comes in with the commando move and gets his gat on the head Kazon to get all the Federation guys their Glocks back.
He goes full hostage.
He does, and then he blows up the water, grabs
Dick move.
grabs Kess and says, "We gotta go. Let's hit the accelerator. We gotta move." They beam back up to the ship, and we find out, of course, that Neelix did all of this to rescue his fucking Ocampan child bride. Because they're together, and she can't be any older than 9, so that is not legal in the Alpha Quadrant for sure.
Yeah, strong pickup on that. But yeah, I want to go back to like when he just shoots both water tanks, just needlessly. Like, yeah, on Janeway's side, like, look, here's some people. There's some real hardship. There's there's people starving and dying of thirst, and we can just make water. It's no issue to us. And yeah, that guy was kind of a dick, but they're like women and children down there. Like, maybe it would have been cool if you would have exerted zero effort and like just sent down some more water, for goodwill, because hey, you're the new kids on block, and maybe presenting the Federation as vicious tormentors to what is it? The fucking like they're in hell, and every time they go to take a drink of water, it evaporates. Like she's become the embodiment of the Greek hell,
And to top it all off, they have a little discussion on the ship in sick bay. Janeway, gets angry that the doctor wants to like force everyone to leave, so she just shuts him off, which is not the last time we'll see that happen. Mm-hmm. So the image just gets turned off, and Robert Picardo shoots her this glance that's just withering right before he evaporates.
Mm-hmm. That's a glance of, one day you are going to need to go into surgery, and I'm going to have to put a catheter in you, and it is going to be very unpleasant.
And Kess, aside from having a terrible wig, of course, she's morally perfectly correct, so she wants to immediately go back down and find a way to get into the city to find Harry and B'Elanna, who, while this has happened, have found like the renegade underground space elves.
Question the way of the elders, and are they're not happy eating nutrient sludge anymore. They want better things in life.
And most importantly, the renegade shows Harry and B'Elanna to an ancient cave that they can climb up to escape, which fortunately for them has steps. It's probably not OSHA compliant, but it seems like this is going to be pretty easy exit.
No, there's a railing. Those are legit, and they're well lit too. That's very OSHA compliant. I think the biggest thing out of the scene with the Ocampa underground isn't the revelation that they can escape or anything else. Like, my biggest note there was whatever drug she gave them. Did you pick up on that when she handed it over?
Yeah, it was like this little herbal packet that's like, rub this in your wounds.
It wasn't a packet, dude. That was a fucking like Dungeons and Dragons crystal dice set dice box. I paused. I'm like, that is straight up a fucking, like, when you go to like these cons and they got is it crystal dice? Is that what they're called? Is that the big dice manufacturer, Crystal Castle or something?
Shit, I do not know.
Well, look, I'm telling you, in my D&D box, there are several of those chock full of D20s, and that is what she hands this green dust over, and we'll get to the whole sickness thing later on anyways. But jumping back to Kess, because that's her chance to really like get up and kind of introduce the character, grandstand, and tell you what she's about. What did you think of her other than her Q-tip wig?
I mean, she's just played up as this morally perfect person. Like, she wants to do the right thing all the time. I know that's supposed to play up her naive innocence and thus her age. I think in the next couple episodes we find out she's 2. So she just doesn't know much about the world, so she's just pure and innocent. I think that's the intention.
I liked her. I thought she had a really strong delivery. I thought she held up her end of the scene well. Very well acted, and the impression I got off of her was almost a freedom fighter type of quality. Like, it's very clear she bucked her own system and decided to strike out on her own, and now she's putting it to Neelix. And I like the character. I don't ever remember liking Kess. Going back in and seeing her first introduction, it left a good taste in my mouth.
It's just, I find her to be the least interesting character on the show.
Oh, I'm sure I'll get to that conclusion too, and I'll be very happy to grandstand it. But for now, I'm going to give credit where credit was due, and her...
Yeah, I mean, she has a good initial episode. I'll agree.
Her pilot performance, I liked the character from what I saw so far.
And we cut back to her essentially finding a way to get the Voyager Scooby squad into this LA shopping mall that they're shooting the Ocampan Underground in.
Oh my god, I am so happy that you said that because that is I got this thing highlighted.
Complete with an escalator, like in the middle of the fucking
Yes!
place.
Yes! Yes! I'm like, I went back and watched it again, and my wife's like, what do you, like, this huge dramatic, revelation that would come on later in the scene about, the caretaker's falling apart and the surface is getting bombarded and we need to get out of here and all of this tension. And they deliver it on what is very clearly a shopping mall escalator going up over the fucking rubber handrail. Like, what the fuck?
It's instead of a walk and talk, it's a stand and ride exposition scene. The Tuvok delivers all of the I have deduced that this is what is happening Deus Ex Vulcana on a fucking escalator. It's so fucking 90s.
Listen, when I go through and I watch something I like, I get engross myself when I get into it. I'm not doing that with Voyager at all. Knowing that this is a podcast, like I've got like real talk glasses on, and I'm nitpicking, but this thing I felt like it was like a magic booger that just kept on going. Like once I latched onto that, okay, good. So you saw it was very clearly a shopping mall. Completely took me out of whatever high production value they had established at this point. Even worse in the stupid down on the farm Cracker Barrel scene they put us through.
So let's fast forward a bit through the next 15 minutes because nothing essentially happens. It's a lot of pointless chase sequence.
The whole fucking thing is stupid. And again, driving back to what I said before, like you got this really good tense situation of the Starfleet and the Maquis in the middle of nowhere, and you just jamming this boring ass Ocampa shit in there.
They basically have this dueling sequence where it's them figuring out where Harry and B'Elanna are trying to escape. Harry and B'Elanna complaining about having to climb stairs, having them find the stairs.
You find out that she was a Starfleet cutout, which at that point is like 100% of the Maquis people that we've been introduced to at this point are former Starfleet deserters, quitters, or worse.
It just seems like this is just where angry washouts go. They go be white trash terrorists.
They're like the anarchs. They can't cut it in the status system.
What eventually happens is that the caretaker's basically sealing off the Ocampa because he's dying. So he's delivered a bunch of energy to them because we discovered in a prior scene that the caretaker accidentally destroyed the Ocampan's atmosphere, which is why they live underground now.
Oops.
So this all got pieced together over the course of the episode. He's dying, so he's basically trying to set the Ocampa up with like a savings account. And now that he's done that, he's trying to basically seal it off so that the Kazon can't raid them. And so they're racing against time to try and get all of their shit out of there so they can escape. And they stereotypically do at the nick of time, but not before Paris has to go back down and save Chakotay and just level some really racist Indian comments.
Oh, good. He comes in like we're rushing through a lot of stuff here, and I got a few I want to nitpick, but you've just hit one of the big nails on the head. Like, can't you turn into like a desert eagle or something? Like, this Inukchuk super friends, like use some of your ninja magic to basically get us out of here. The real humdinger for me is where he's like, basically Chakotay gets incapacitated, his leg gets stuck in some non-OSHA compliant piping, and Chakotay's like, hey dudes, get out of here, and Paris hangs around in a very, I would almost say a sadistic look on his face of knowing that he's about to get some heavy I told you so points and really rub some faces and some shit. So he goes, pulls Chakotay's ass out of the fire and just basically straight up says like, I'm enslaving you, Indian, and I own you now. Chakotay, that's a Wookiee name, right?
We now cut to a big space battle.
I want to point out that the caretaker, on their third visit to the stupid space station, now he busts out the fucking tea and crumpets and like lays the whole plan out about why they're there and this and that, like on his deathbed, when arguably his time is the most valuable. This guy's just rolling everything out and giving you the full exposition when he wouldn't even give the Voyager like the time of day before that.
So what happens is that the Kazon get wise to the fact that Voyager's got a bunch of like cool technologies. They roll up in their space hoopties and they give battle. And at first they're not no match. They're really big space hoopty, like that school bus that someone bought. You know that rolls up and it's definitely going to be a harder fight. And in fact, Chakotay suicide bombs the little Trans Am into it to disable it, while Janeway and Tuvok are on the array getting this last second info dump from the caretaker.
Why did the caretaker not just obliterate the Kazon?
Yeah, like he seems very passive to everything going around him except to help the Ocampa in the least effective way possible.
I would like he's identified the Kazon are the biggest threat. He doesn't want to attack him. He's obviously remorseful for what he's done to the Ocampa. He seems to be some sort of pacifist. Maybe the space station doesn't have weapons. Maybe he is against harming other creatures. Except, he's over there pumping everybody full of fucking space aids in an attempt to, biologically assimilate captives into children? Like, he's a parasite? He's not a good guy. He's terminally infecting people.
By the way, Harry Kim and B'Elanna Torres, their space aids never gets mentioned again, and they are apparently cured. It does not get mentioned in the episode what happens.
Dude, I've got that right on my piece of paper here too. Like, what's
it's like they get beamed back up to the ship, and it's apparently space aids is a quick inoculation for the Federation. So Chakotay 911's the big Kazon ship. It starts to break up, it hits the array, and it knocks out the caretaker's self-destruct sequence. And at the same time, Tuvok rolls up and is like, I have figured out how this shit works. I am quite certain that if we have a few hours, I can get us back to the Alpha Quadrant. No problem. Mm-hmm. And so the caretaker reduces itself down to a giant kidney stone, and it is dead.
Which Janeway wastes zero time in going over and fucking manhandling.
Right, like, just takes those alien remains and takes them in hand.
Like, she loots them.
This is where the episode falls apart for me entirely. Mm-hmm. Because this is the crux, right? This is the moment where they make the big decision that sets up the rest of the series. And Tuvok rightly points out we shouldn't even be involved in this. The Prime Directive would suggest that we do anything here, we're interrupting what would be the natural balance of power in this. So why don't we just go home and leave all this to all the rest of them to sort out? And Janeway, who just met these mayfly space elves for like 10 minutes, says, nah, we have an obligation to just blow this place and find another way home because otherwise they would get subjugated. So we're going to beam back over and we're going to blow this joint. And I just did not buy that scene at all. I just didn't.
And you're pointing it out, and it was something I was thinking about too. Did she not just have like a big long ass conversation with a suddenly chatty caretaker where she's like, look, you need to leave people to their own devices, and maybe these Ocampa who you think, can't survive on their own, they'll surprise you and be able to flourish, right?
There was even swelling music while that monologue was happening.
So she goes from like saying like the Ocampa will be fine on their own to no, the Ocampa need to be protected, and that's why we're going to destroy the space station. I mean,
they don't even like suggest the idea of like, why don't we like beam over a timed bomb like right before we bounce?
Yeah,
or anything like that. It's just let's go back to our ship and blow it up and be stranded on the other side of the galaxy. I got one more point to make. If you're going to base your whole show on this sort of Lost in Space style, stranded, island in a stream of stars type of situation, mm-hmm. Please make the moment of choice for that the where you tighten up your writing to the maximum level. Please don't make that a sloppy, as the episode ends, bullshit emotional point.
So the Intrepid, again, going back, you've got the pinnacle of Federation technology, and the Intrepid is smaller than the Galaxy, but from what I was reading, I mean, it's still about the size of an Ambassador class, right? Which was a heavy cruiser.
Well, it's got a lot less people in it. I mean, I don't know how the relative size work. I'd have to look at one of those charts that nerds put together sometimes on the internet, but I mean, it's only got 140 people in it, and an Ambassador class had, 3 or 4 times that.
But I mean, we're not talking about a runabout here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tight, this is a tight little ship.
This thing, I think they said that lengthwise, at least, it was like from the deflector dish to the saucer from Ted and Ford on the Galaxy. And you're packing some pretty heavy firepower on this thing. Like, where are the Kazon really in the tech? Like, obviously, they don't have transporters. They don't have replicators. Has this essentially established here that even though they don't have, like, luxury technology, like, their shields and phasers are still on par with the best, the bleeding edge of the Federation technology? Like, I would have thought that the Voyager would have been able to just fucking spank everybody and send them all, home packing, being like, all right, we knocked out your shit. You're going to drift aimlessly in space while we get what we want. And then, leave a charge behind to blow this fucking thing up. If we even wanted to interfere to that point. Like, this flies in all logic. She just said, hey, caretaker, the Ocampa got to stand on their own. Tuvok had her dead to rights. I'm like, look, if we weren't here, this shit would be happening anyways. Let nature take its course. And the Prime Directive says the same thing. And you're going to strand all of us. And then the follow-up argument to this, which goes back to my big, complaint, was the Maquis just willy-nilly, mending broken wounds and throwing in with it. Like, you're watching in real time as this Starfleet captain just arbitrarily decides, hey, Ocampa lives matter more than Federation and Maquis. We're going to blow this damn thing up and damn everybody to a 200-year voyage home.
They're back on the ship. Janeway's telling Tuvok, prepare the tricobalt devices, which is a thing we've never heard before in Star Trek, would apparently pack a wallop. B'Elanna's like, what the fuck are you doing? And she's like, I'm going to blow this thing up.
Very calmly, too.
Right, and B'Elanna's like, fuck you, no. We need that thing to get home. And then of all people, Chakotay all of a sudden is 100% on board, who is a contentious asshole terrorist not 20 minutes ago in this episode, just goes, she's the captain. She's making the decision. Like, fucking, are you for real? Are you for real right now? Like, this woman you don't know is about to strand you on the other side of the galaxy and you're just cool with it?
There was a deleted scene wherein she called Chakotay into the ready room, grabbed him by the hair, bent him over, and put her thumb up his butt and asserted dominance.
It's like, I own this now. This belongs to me.
Tom Paris came in and he traded that life boon off that he had on Chakotay. And she called in that life debt to say, hey, look, you got to back me no matter what dumb fucking... Like, 101 ways to make this situation seem cemented and permanent and making sense. And these writers just pick the most flippant, emotional avenue possible to explain why they have just shot themselves in the foot for 7 years.
Yeah, I mean, they had an hour and 45 minutes to do better than this, and this is what they fart out at the end. But they blow it up. They shoot the Trigolt devices, it blows up the Kazon, or like, we're angry, we're going to take our space hoopties and get you next time, Gadget.
You fucked us twice now. Not only did you shoot that water and torment us when you could have just, left us with water and happy, but now the second time we've met you, you've stuck your dick in our mashed potatoes again. We gave you a second chance. You guys suck. I hope you're ready for some persistent nagging. And
we get a quick coda in the episode where Janeway delivers a little speech about that they're all stranded now. But before that, though, we do get a scene in the ready room where Janeway calls in Tom, baddest boy now in the Delta Quadrant, and says, hey, Tom, listen, need someone to fly the ship.
There's nobody else around.
You're super qualified. And so I'm just going to commission you as a lieutenant, and you're going to fly the ship. And it's bizarre to me that this happens. For some reasons you already mentioned, they're terrorists and all this stuff. Like, Tom Paris is both got cashiered out of Starfleet and a terrorist. Like, at least Chakotay just quit,
yep.
Right? All of the Maquis, they're provisional, right? They have those weird bar provisional ranking insignia. Tom Paris is straight up given normal rank insignia. Like, he's regular service. It's revealed in a future episode that he's fourth in command of the ship. So it's Janeway, Chakotay, Tuvok, and then Paris. The negligent homicide former terrorist pilot is fourth in charge. Like, fucking Harry Kim might be fresh out of the academy, but he never murdered anybody. Like,
he never
seriously?
staged a cover-up.
Right, like he never staged a cover up for negligent homicide. He certainly never was a terrorist.
She hates her crew with such a burning passion that she takes pirates and animals and I'm surprised there's not like a fucking fern sitting behind an important control panel if it means keeping one of these other yahoos she shipped off a DS9 with out of there. And again, she gets in front of the crew and says, hey, here's this long ass journey. Like, not a single person in there like, yeah, bitch, you fucking caused this problem. We could have been just fine.
Everyone's in uniform. Everyone's, standing up straight. Like, yes, we're on this grand adventure together. This all slapped together in the last 10 minutes of the episode.
Yeah. And I want to jump back to Paris. When we met Will Riker for the first time, they were very sure to tell us that he was the best pilot in the Federation. Like, how lucky is it that every ship that gets commissioned gets the best current pilot in the Federation?
It's that Star Trek quality writing.
Yeah. Also,
they love their tropes. They love them.
And of all the Federation ships to get thrown to the far edges of space and have to make some sort of long discovery trek home, how lucky that it's that deep space exploration vehicle and perfectly equipped. How fortuitous. Good thing it wasn't some busted up old Miranda class.
I know, right? Like, it's not some Oberth class scout can't make warp 6. Might as well just fly that shit into the sun for all the good it'll do you.
So, some fucking Excelsior class that, at least it looks good out there. You've got these people who are supposed to be in the brig at best. And, she just snuffs her entire... hey, how about your security officer? I think he would have been a pretty solid choice for XO. But I also like that they did play that Paris was going to have some bad blood with these Maquis people.
If they paid off any of that, which, we'll see relatively quickly where that goes.
Sure.
But overall, Peter, did you enjoy it? Did the strong first part outweigh the sort of slow decline? Like, what was your feelings? What's your takeaway?
I don't think there was a strong first part. I think there was a strong potential that never realized for one reason or another. I think there were a couple very potent disappointments, like the premise establishing transportation or accident being very lackluster. The focus of the Ocampa over the Maquis conflict, the inclusion of the caretaker in Ocampa plot. I think that would have been an okay second episode. Definitely not something you'd want to build around the first thing. I see potential, and I see a lot of stuff that I think as a child I would have rolled my eyes or been very turned off by, character-wise, looking very strong in hindsight as a 35-year-old. So, I don't know. A lot of mixed feelings here.
I think that Pilot in many ways represents all of the weaknesses of the show and all of its strengths. There are moments of brilliance, and there will be moments of brilliance as we go through this series. There are some fantastic Star Trek episodes in Voyager buried in there, and we're going to find them, and we're going to enjoy them. I have no doubt. Knowing you, and I know what we're kind of getting ourselves into since I've seen the series, although it's been a while since I've seen it all. The moments of brilliance are overshadowed, unfortunately, by what seems to be just sloppiness, laziness, or failure to deliver on a good idea. And I was into this episode until I didn't remember how the payoff worked. I obviously remembered she blew up the array, but the weakness of the last 15 minutes, which is where this entire hour and 45-minute episode was hinged on, it just kind of ended with this wet fart. It didn't end with any kind of urgency. It didn't come together in a way that made sense. I mean, frickin' Chakotay literally just stands there like a set of crappy blinds.
A scarecrow.
Just goes along with this, and it just didn't make any sense to what they had established at that point. But I do think that it had a really interesting premise there in the first 25 minutes, and they just didn't really do anything with it. We spent a lot of time with mayfly space elves that didn't matter.
I will say that as far as pilots go, certainly beat Encounter at Farpoint, so I'll give them credit for that.
I would say the best of all the Star Trek pilots, the original series, and then probably Enterprise. Broken Bow is actually really good. This was okay, and we'll see where this goes next.
What's up next on the docket?
So the next episode is Parallax.
The evil Hal Jordan from DC fame.
Well, this is the episode where they sort of kind of settle up on the unspoken, what do we do with all these terrorists that are on our crew now, question from the end of the episode. So,
Oh, it's a good question. Do they also get into what happened to space syphilis?
no, I'm pretty sure that's just written off without a word. So
Maybe the transporter cleared it up with its quarantine buffers. Do they? The caretaker said that there used to be two of them, and there's another one floating around out there. Do they ever address that, or is that just another loose thread that no one gives a shit about?
oh yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. That tease was actually put out there as a safety clause, where Braga said that just in case the studio execs decided they wanted to go in a different direction with the show, they had a automatic thing they could call in to change up the show.
So they could put it back into the traditional Alpha Quadrant format if they wanted.
Yeah, or something along those lines. Yeah, so, but that definitely comes into play later. There's a lot, that we're going to see. Obviously, they're in the Delta Quadrant, so that's the Borg part of space, and that's probably the most controversial part of the show. And that's all to come. Any final thoughts before we wrap?
I had a good time doing the podcast. I look forward to doing the next one. Certainly, I've got a lot of pages to fill up in this notebook, and I look forward to punishing my wife with making me sit through these episodes. My big takeaway from this recording, though, was that discovery that Dr. Asshole was Roga Dinar.
He's secretly
my mind is blown. That's fucking awesome.
Jeff McCarthy, MVP. Yep. One scene with words in the entire pilot.
But he made those count, man. That's my MVP, this one. Here we are at the end. I'm going to go ahead and close this off with my rule of acquisition, encapsulating this. Something for the listeners at home to think about. Rule of acquisition 239. Never be afraid to mislabel a product.
We'll leave it there. All right, till next time.
This is Peter.
This is Joseph, and you have been on Beeger Please, a hateful voyage through the Delta Quadrant.